For centuries, the Kingdom of Korea was known as the Hermit Kingdom because of its geography and isolation from the rest of Asia. Today, the Republic of Korea, or South Korea, is one of the most vibrant and economically successful countries in Asia, if not the world. Its cars, skaters, and pop bands are popular worldwide, and the people of South Korea enjoy a per capita income that rivals that of the United States. In 2021, its gross domestic product, GDP, was double that of Russia. South Korea is just over 100,000 square miles in size, whereas Russia is over 66 million. Unfortunately for the 26 million people of North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, that occupies half of the Korean peninsula, is still a true hermit kingdom. Very few people go out, and even fewer come in. There's a reason for that. North Korea may be the most totalitarian state to ever exist, rivaling Stalin's Russia, Mao's China, Hitler's Germany, and Ceausescu's Romania. The North Korean government has had 75 years to perfect terror. You may have seen the famous image of South Korea lit up from space, with its northern neighbor virtually in the dark, except for its capital, Pyongyang. North Korea is desperately poor and underdeveloped, except once again for its capital. In 2015, its estimated annual per capita income was $1,700, and its GDP in 2013 was about $28 million. Those figures are based on the official exchange rate, though the real figure is likely lower. You'll notice these numbers are almost 10 years old and come from the 2023 CIA Factbook. Information is hard to come by when it comes to the Hermit Kingdom. One thing North Korea doesn't lack, though, is weapons. It's armed to the teeth, and as you likely know, it's spent the better part of the past 20 years developing nuclear weapons. Its leader, Kim Jong-un, and the top of the North Korean regime fund this program through all sorts of criminal activities, such as narcotics, supplying weapons to terrorist groups worldwide, prostitution in Japan, and much more. Currently, it's making money by selling Russia artillery shells for its war against Ukraine. North Korea is a pariah, and very few nations want anything to do with it. It carries out assassinations of defectors and political opponents overseas, the most famous recent case being Kim Jong-un's half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, who had been expelled from North Korea in 2003. DPRK agents walked by him in Malaysia and injected him with a deadly nerve agent in 2017. In 1948, longtime North Korean communist Kim Il-sung became the undisputed leader of the country. He did this mainly because he had the backing of the Soviet government, at that time run by Stalin, whom Kim worshipped. In 1950, despite some hesitation from Stalin, Kim began the Korean War, 1950–53, in an attempt to unify the Korean peninsula, which had been divided into two nations at the end of World War II. Kim's attempt ultimately failed, and 500,000 Chinese troops were required to save him and his regime. The Korean War cost 2.5 million lives, including nearly 60,000 American servicemen. When the war ended, Kim Il-sung set about establishing the world's most bizarre cult of personality. Kim wrote prolifically or supplied outlines to his ghostwriters, and he and they set about writing a new biography of Kim. They relatively accurately portrayed his youth and education in the Soviet Union as a young communist. But then it got strange. They associated Kim with happenings on Mount Baekdu, a sacred mountain in both Chinese and Korean belief systems. He was said to have conducted a campaign against the Japanese occupation, 1910–45 there, and his son, Kim Jong-il, was said to have been born there, like a child of the gods. Kim didn't lead from there, and his son was born in the USSR. But millions of North Koreans believed the legend. They believed it because not believing what the government says in North Korea can get you tortured, starved, sexually assaulted, and executed. Today, Kim Jong-un, who milks his likeness to his grandfather for all it's worth and deliberately stays chubby because many Koreans believe the gods of old were happy, well-fed, and caring figures, goes to Mount Baekdu and is photographed looking heroic, thoughtful, or caring. Kim's caring, all right. He had his brother killed in 2017. 4 years before that, he had his uncle shot by firing squad, reportedly watching as an anti-aircraft gun opened fire on him. Kim Il-sung and his regime put together 10 foundational rules for all North Koreans to follow all the time, and they are still the glue that holds the society, which is a police state, together. We're not going to recite all of the rules, but here are a few to give you an idea of life in North Korea. Struggle with all your life to paint the entire society with the one color of the great leader Kim Il-sung's revolutionary thought. Accept the great leader comrade Kim Il-sung's revolutionary thought as your belief and take the great leader's instructions as your creed. The great revolutionary accomplishments pioneered by the great leader Kim Il-sung must be succeeded and perfected by hereditary successions until the end. As you can see, Kim made sure that his family would be next in line, and it has been since his death in 1994. First, his son, Kim Jong-il, ruled from 1994 to 2011, and his grandson has been in power since 2011. North Korea is not your typical communist state. It strangely includes racial and social prejudice in how its society is formed, and what's more, includes the unborn in its classification system, called Songbun. Though there are literally dozens of classifications within North Korea, there are 3 basic categories: core, wavering, and hostile. People in the core category are descendants of those who fought against the Japanese from 1910 to 45, people whose families were workers, peasants, or laborers when North Korea became a country, and high-ranking party members and their families, almost all of whom had ancestors from the groups just mentioned. The wavering group makes up the bulk of the North Korean population, who are watched not only by the secret police but also by each other, with their files and lives investigated every 2 years. The last group consists of those descended from former landowners, considered to have taken advantage of the working classes for centuries, and criminals, those who break the law, including people who try to flee the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Their descendants are tainted for at least 3 generations, and there is virtually nothing they can do about it. Another group often categorized in the hostile group is those with Chinese or Japanese blood. As you can see, North Korea bears more resemblance to Hitler's Germany in the value it places on blood than anyone in North Korea would admit. As in every system, there are likely exceptions, and it's easy to imagine that someone who performs an unusual act of bravery in military service might move up the ladder. But there is so much we don't know about the inner workings of North Korea that it's difficult to say. From 1994 to 1998, North Korea suffered a devastating famine. Estimates of the total death toll varied, but low figures put it at about 300,000 and the highest at 3 million. The famine was so severe that the dear leader, Kim Jong-il, accepted food aid from the United States, North Korea's arch-enemy. Naturally, people who are starving are desperate and act out by stealing food or other things to raise money for food. They grumble, but in North Korea, grumbling about the Kims or the system will likely result in a far worse penalty than actual crime. People can understand someone hungry stealing, though that does nothing to lessen their sentence, but what the North Korean leadership cannot abide is any criticism of the system or its leaders. That might mean a death sentence, either a quick one with a bullet to the back of the neck, or a slow death in a prison or concentration camp. Grumbling about the system or the supreme leader Kim Jong-un could mean many things. In 2011, when Kim Jong-il died, hundreds were arrested, not for celebrating, but for not mourning with enough emotion or faking grief. The people of North Korea have been beaten down and brainwashed for so long that much of the grief and anger we often see on TV is genuine, though not all of it. Many defectors have stated that there is an undercurrent of anger and disgust with the Kim family and the system, but no one dares say it openly, verbally, or even with the expression on their face. To give you another example, Nepalese eye surgeon Sanduk Ruit has made it his life's work to repair the eyes of people with cataracts, which is a common condition in poorer countries. The surgery is very simple, but most people in those countries, including North Korea, do not have the money or access to medical care. By the way, North Korean hospitals, even those for the top echelon of the ruling class, are absolutely abysmal. A few years ago, Ruit got permission from the DPRK government to perform cataract surgeries on people who hadn't seen for years, some since childhood. They suddenly had their vision. Who did they thank first? Dear leader, Kim Jong-il. And it wasn't just a thank you. You can see it here for yourself. In North Korea, you can be arrested at any time or any place. What's more, the police don't have to tell you why. This holds true even for those at the top. Well, likely not the very top, but close. At least those in positions of power have some protection. Perhaps most people do not. The first place they'll end up is likely a holding cell in a prison or local jail. Accounts from escapees and former guards who defected have painted a bleak picture. Up to 40 people are packed into a 30-meter square room. There is no room to lie down, except on top of or under others. The entire cell is made of cinder blocks, and North Korea can be one of the coldest countries on Earth in winter. A bucket is used for waste, though guards have been known to remove this either for breaking the rules, which no one knows, or just because they can. Guards have been indoctrinated to believe that anyone who ends up in their care is an enemy of the state and less than human. Throughout this process, which can take days, weeks, or months, the prisoner is subjected to sleep deprivation, beatings, deliberate starvation, and more. Women and girls are subject to sexual assault. Once the bureaucracy has determined your crime and classification, you will end up in one of two places: the Kwanliso for political prisoners and some criminals, or the Kyawoso, or re-education camps. There is very little difference in the treatment received in these two systems, but in the re-education camps, it is possible to be released. Possible, maybe not likely. Political crimes are considered much more serious. This includes espionage and, on occasion, visiting foreigners, including those from communist countries, have been arrested and thrown into the Kwanliso system, not to be seen again for years, if ever. American student Otto Warmbier was accused of damaging state property for taking down a poster he wanted to keep as a souvenir. He was kept in a special jail, and as you know, the treatment he received, or didn't receive, from the lack of medical care resulted in his death. In all the camps, most of which are located in the rugged, remote, and freezing mountains in the northern part of the country and separated from other communities, torture is commonplace. This comes in many forms, including what's already been mentioned. Psychological torture leaves inmates believing that they actually did do what they are accused of, even though they may be totally innocent. One North Korean defector told of being chained to a bar behind his back by his wrists, toes barely touching the floor for days. He said it was the worst punishment he ever experienced, which included beatings, solitary confinement, and electric shock. Some women are arrested while pregnant, and some become pregnant in the camps through sexual assault or bartering their bodies for food. Occasionally, these babies are allowed to live, but they are tainted by their mother's blood and will never see the world outside the walls. They will likely die very early. Most often than not, the baby will be aborted or killed at birth. We will spare you the methods, but you can find out much more by visiting www.netkiddengulag.org, an organization that works with the UN, Amnesty, the US government, and many other human rights organizations to collect and record information about the crimes against humanity that go on in North Korea and that are happening as you watch this video. We thank you for watching with us today. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more incredibly important topics like this one.